Guadalupe River, and I am happy to be alive and still kicking. And I've gotten these feelings about death lately that are actually quite motivating, and I wanted to share that. My mission here is to raise the vibration of humanity in any way I know how, as clumsy as it may be. I'm Stevie the Guide, Steve Dyer, on the banks of the Guadalupe River here in Kerrville, Texas. And I think death is a motivating thing. Hey, tick tock, tick tock. You only got so many minutes, and guess what? You don't know how many minutes you got. And people who think they have a lot of time often are the ones who don't. And I guess I've gotten off on this today because a friend of mine's mother is in the process of dying, and it is, I don't even know her. I just am kind of a spectator from a distance, and I hear the reports that come from their home every day as her mother works through this graduation process, and what I see on on the outside looking in is this this gradual approach to this graduation of death, and you'll hear the reports that, oh, mom's not doing so well today, and she's really going down. We think this is it, and then the next thing you know, she rallies, and all of a sudden she's barking orders at everybody. She's saying, hey, I gotta personally fill out the household checks for the bills, even though somebody else could do that, and oh, you need to go and do this thing and that thing, and then she'll slide back into a slump, and you'll think she's near the end, and all of a sudden, poof, she's back, and she's full of energy, and it's this knowledge, this knowledge that death is imminent, that causes us to live even more. And I think it would actually be a blessing of sorts if everyone got the news that they had some terminal illness and only had a little while to live. I'm reminded of this movie called Joe versus the Volcano. It was a silly Tom Hanks movie with Meg Ryan and Lloyd Bridges, and Tom Hanks is this lowly guy in a dimly lit office. He had this miserable life, and he wasn't doing much of anything about it. He just sort of, went along with life and assumed that that's the way life was. It was dreary, and it was a nowhere sort of deal. And all of a sudden, he gets the news from this doctor that he has a terminal illness and he's going to die. And Lloyd Bridges finds him, and Lloyd Bridges, by the way, had set up this whole scenario. For some reason, they had targeted him, but he's told that he's going to die, and said, hey, since you're going to die anyway, why don't you live the last days of your life, full throttle? We'll pay you, all the money you want to go and have a good time and do whatever you want to do. But at the end of it, you got to go down to this South Pacific island and jump into the volcano because we need a sacrifice to appease the gods so that we can do our mining or whatever it is down on this island. Anyway, it's a kooky story, but in the process, young Tom Hanks learns the value of living before he goes, and then he finds out later he's not actually going to die, and he gets Meg Ryan and all that. But there's a powerful message in that, and there's a moment when Tom Hanks' ship, he goes through some typhoon and the ship goes down, and he's laying on top of these trunks out in the middle of the ocean, and it's nighttime, and he wakes up, and the moon comes up, and it's big and bright and amazing, and he says, oh my God, Thank you for my life. I've forgotten how big. And that's, I think, the defining moment of the movie, where we forget how big this thing called life is. And we forget to be thankful and have gratitude for whatever we have and whatever situation we're in. And when that comes to us, that there's really just a short amount of time to live here, it causes this frenzy of activity, and I want to accomplish something before I go, and I want to see something, I want to do something, I want to reach out to those people. My old Sunday school teacher, Zig Ziglar, up at Prestonwood Baptist Church in Dallas, he used to say, he used to go and see these people at the old folks' homes all the time, and he'd say, you get to the end of the life, and you're either saying, I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. And many people often say, I wish I had. I wish I had written that letter. I wish I had reached out to somebody. I wish I had said, I love you. I wish I had repaired that relationship. It's always about relationship. And it's also about your personal accomplishments. Like, I wish I had read that book. I wish I had tried to be a broadcaster. I wish I had tried. And death is a funny thing. It really is. And when I was a kid, I had a blessing when I was about 6 years old, a rich blessing, and I didn't know it at the time. But when I was about 6 years old, I had an experience. Some might call it a dream. I was in my bed, sleeping, but there's a certain fabric between a difference in the fabric of a dream and the fabric of a memory. All right, and I've had lots of dreams, and most of them fade, but memories, they don't fade. And I had a memory of being in. I have a memory of coming out of my body and watching it walk down the sidewalk when I was 6 years old. I flew around in a little transparent light body all over the elementary school and could see, the neighborhoods around the area while I watched my physical body walk down the street. This really happened to me. It's part of my genuine, authentic history, and I'll tell it to you because I love you, and I don't care if you think I'm crazy. This is my own genuine human being experience. I flew around over the elementary school in a light body, and what I got out of that experience was that I realized that this body here is a loner, and I don't own it. I'm just honored to have this physical body to move around in. But the point is, since the day, back then when I was about 6 years old, I have never been afraid to die. I kind of know what it's going to be like, and you can dispute that all you want, but this has been my reality going through life. I've never been afraid to die. I know it's going to be a great adventure, and it's going to be phenomenal. And other things that have happened in my life have confirmed this, some of which I talked about last week. Anyway, I think that has been one of the components that propelled me to go and explore this planet and meet the people of this planet and do things like scuba dive to the bottom of the ocean and climb up high in the mountains and not be so concerned about money, but just in order to live. This is Marcus Aurelius of, ancient Rome and Egypt fame, Marcus Aurelius. He said, it is not death that a man should be afraid of. He should fear never beginning to live. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. There's another saying, and I can't remember where it came from, but it says, everyone dies, but not everyone truly lives. And there's something about the organism that wants to live, and it wants to experience everything it possibly can before it's time to go to bed, and before it's time to die. One summer I worked for these oil and gas exploration companies all over the planet. I went to China and Southeast Asia, and I was in North Dakota and all over Montana and Utah, and worked in the jungles of Louisiana and a bunch of different places. Saw a lot of the world through oil exploration in first 10 years of my adulthood. And but one of the most amazing places I ever went was Alaska. And I got to go to Alaska 2 different years, and mostly during the summer. You can't work there and do what we did in the middle of the winter. And so you'd show up about early May, and you leave about late September, and that's about our working season up in Alaska. And one summer I worked in the Aleutian Islands, out in the Bering Sea, and we went all over the international date line, and that was a whole experience in and of itself. Cold and cloudy, as I recall, but the most interesting summer that I had in Alaska was the first year I went there, and that was about 1980. In 1980, I got to fly all over Cook Inlet. I was a surveyor's assistant, and I got to fly all over Cook Inlet area and Redoubt Mountain down to Homer and Kasilof River and Trading Bay, both sides of Cook Inlet. If you know, it is a wild, amazing part of the world. And we had a camp right in the middle of Cook Inlet in a place called Calgan Island. And I was chosen as a surveyor's helper. It was such an amazing lucky break. I'd given this surveyor in Louisiana, in the swamps of Louisiana, I gave this surveyor and his helper a case of beer out of our company's personal stash. And that paid off in spades when we got to Alaska later that year. I was going to be on a land crew putting out seismic lines and, trudging across the tundra all summer, when this helicopter landed at our camp, and the surveyor Warren chose me all summer long as the surveyor's helper. And it was such a lucky break, and I'm just blessed beyond my wildest imagination what I got to see in Alaska. I got to fly in a Bell Jet Ranger. It's a 5-passenger helicopter, pretty much all summer long. And these 2 guys that operated the survey crew were Warren, who was the surveyor, and Chewy, who was the helicopter pilot. And Chewy, both of them had been in Vietnam and seen action there. And Warren was sort of the polished officer, and Chewy was the pilot. And he reminded me of, if you ever saw a movie called Con Air, there's this hippie that flies the plane, and then Chewy was just like that. And these guys flew me all over, Cook Inlet and all that whole part of Alaska all summer long. And the reason I mention this with regard to life and death is when you get to Alaska early in the summer, you appreciate that it stays nighttime there. In winter, it's not only cold, but it's dark, and you get very little sunlight. And so when the season comes upon the land in Alaska about, early May, and the weather starts to break there, life begins to grow really, really fast. And you can see the life cycle in Alaska and the life cycle in those northern Arctic places. When the warm weather comes, boy, those living organisms, they take full advantage of it, and they just grow fast and grow big, and the grass grows and the mosquitoes grow and everything hatches, and bears are coming out of hibernation. And when you get to see all this from the platform of a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter, it's unbelievable. And the things that I got to see, because we had those vehicles, Most people who have lived in Alaska all their lives never got to see what I got to see in Alaska, and we did a lot of goofing off in that helicopter, and Warren was a photographer, and he could direct the pilot to do whatever he wanted to do. And once we got our work finished, about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, then we spend 2, 3, 4 hours just flying around. And Warren had this camera equipment, and we were shooting photographs of bears and geese and people fishing boats out on the inlet, and we'd stop and land in these little fishing villages and stuff, and meet these old crusty fishermen. We saw a life and a beauty that's unbelievable. We'd see sunset and sunrise in this thing, and just amazing. And you see Alaska wake up in the trees and the grass and the flowers all just cruising really fast. Within a week, things are popping out and growing all over the place. And I guess the reason I mention it is because it's a good metaphor for how we should be. We tend to take life for granted, and we tend to assume that we have plenty of time. And in fact, we fool ourselves that this death thing's not coming, at least not for a long time. It's something that no one understands. They don't understand what's going to happen. They can theorize about it. They can tell you their visions about it. They can tell you their theories and interpretations about it. But I don't care who you are, what sort of spiritual leader you are. You ain't been there yet, okay? So you don't know. There's I think that it's good to remind oneself that this life cycle does have a limit. And that we should be like these plants and living things up in Alaska, and treat this as an accelerated season, and try to squeeze as much juice out of it as we can. We tend to go home and flop on the couch and turn on the TV, and we could be using that creative juice, because when you get up close, it's just like when you get a terminal illness. All of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I have so much less time than I thought I did. It's always like a shock, right? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die, and and so all of a sudden you say, well, what are all the things? What's on my bucket list? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? I'm reminded of this guy. A friend of mine's dad was dying in the hospital, and there was this other stockbroker guy from New York. He was waiting on a liver transplant, and he treated it like it was just some hiccup in the road. He was telling his friends, I just got this one little thing to do here in the hospital, and I'll be back trading, and he's talking about deals. His poor family's sitting around wanting to talk to him, and he doesn't pay attention to them. And because he thinks he has all the time in the world, right? And the fact is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, moms and dads, we just have a little bit of time, all right? There's just a little bit of time to be a live human being free on the earth. And so to try to do what one can without getting, so entangled in stuff that doesn't really matter. I'm speaking to myself as much as anybody, and I also was thinking of that movie Lonesome Dove, and how a life is lived. There's a cool thing about funerals and graveyards, and I like them. I like going to, I'm kind of like on that movie Harold and Maude. Maude was this old lady, what's her name? Funny old lady. And she liked to go to funerals just to sort of remind herself to celebrate life. And when I walk around in a graveyard, cemetery, there's a certain kind of feel that comes from, I'm not one of the ones that's dead yet. There's sort of a happy feeling that comes over me that I'm not there yet. They haven't planted me in the ground yet. And And there's a scene in Lonesome Dove where there's a funny old character named Roscoe Brown, and he's riding his horse. He's going to find July Johnson out there in Texas somewhere, and he's set upon by these two bandits who point guns at him, and they say, "Hey, let's kill him and take his horse." And they're like, "Okay." And so they say, "Okay, man," they're pointing guns at him. They say, "All right, clamber down off that horse." And he was like, I don't want no trouble. And they point the guns at him. She says, "Oh, yes, sir." And he gets down off the horse, and they go, "All right, strip off them duds." And he's like, "What?" And they go, "Well, you come into this world naked. You might as well go out the same way." and that's true, And it doesn't matter what all we've acquired and accomplished, really. I mean, I think you become something, but what you make of yourself, that does carry over. The experiences that you've had here on Earth, the lessons that you've learned, the things that you've seen, and I think that's maybe why I've decided to spend a lot of my life in travel and exploration, rather than the concentration of wealth. Just my philosophy. But I think that a lot of people don't realize, there's a friend of mine, he's an attorney here in Kerrville, Texas, Steve, and he said, I have all these rich guys come into my office wanting me to write up their last will and testament. And they say, "Okay, if I die, I want this to go there and that to go there and this to go to my ex-wife and blah, blah. If I die, I want this and that and such, And the attorney stops him. He says, "Wait a minute, I can't write it up that way." And he goes, "Why not? That's what I want." And he goes, "Because the document, the last will and testament, cannot say if I die." All right. That is not a possibility. It's when I die. When I die, these things will happen. When I die, they're going to strip me down and I will have nothing that I've made, none of the money that I've earned, none of the land that I think I own, nothing. And it's hard for people, especially the rich and powerful, sometimes to realize that they're going to let all that go and be gone from here. And I was... when I was a little boy, I was 8 or 10 years old. My grandmother, she remarried. My grandfather, my biological grandfather, my dad's dad, he was the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals when they won the World Series in 1946. His name was Eddie Dyer, and he's a wonderful man by all reports, but I just barely remember him. And he had a stroke when he was 60 and died when he was 62. My other grandfather died when he was 52 of a heart attack. And so these are clear examples of people who thought they had more time, but they didn't. And anyway, after my grandfather died, my grandmother was single for a while, and then she married this wonderful man named George, Granddaddy George, we called him, and I was about 8 or 10 years old. And Granddaddy George was a very polished Naval Academy graduate. He had been an engineer in the Saudi oil fields, and his wife had passed away, so he married my grandmother. And George had a beautiful racehorse farm up in Virginia, in a place outside of Middleburg. It's only about 45 minutes or an hour from Dulles Airport there in Washington. And it was in that in an area called the Plains, Virginia, which is a lovely area, racehorse country. The Plains and what do I want to say, the bluegrass country. Anyway, this was one of those ancient turn of the century plantation type farms that had big white house with columns and had several different families who lived on the farm and worked there. The whole place was lined with these hand laid stones, the rock walls that are hand laid without cement. And you've always got some guy out there who's restacking the walls, and maintaining these walls. And just makes it look majestic. It makes it look like you're rolling up there, during the Civil War. And it's a Civil War era place in Virginia. And it was stunningly beautiful. It had these white and green buildings, and it had horses here and Angus cattle over there, and these ponds everywhere. We just had a marvelous time there, and especially when it would get warm and the weather would break, and you would go there. As soon as they let us out of school, we were up in Virginia. Until oftentimes until it's time to go back to school. I mean, we learned how to bale hay and how to creosote fences, and my step grandfather George was a marvelous teacher. He was a wonderful teacher, wonderful man. He never had any children of his own, so now he's got 9 grandchildren, mostly boys, and he takes it upon himself to become a teacher to us, and he taught us how to clean up a bathroom when it's finished, and taught us how to properly dress for dinner. This guy was dressed to the nines. I don't care if you were going to McDonald's, he always wore a jacket to dinner. Anyway, the point of all that Uncle Remus tale is that I was talking to Granddaddy George. I was so impressed with him and this farm, and he was just the lord of the manor. He was a guy that was in charge of everything, and was just so tremendously capable. And I commented to him one day when I was little. I said, it must be nice to own all this. And we're walking across this beautiful yard. And he stops and he turns to me. I said, it must be nice to be the owner of all this, Granddaddy. And he turns to me and looks at me in this long way. And he says, you know what, Stevie? We're not owners here. We never were. We're caretakers. All right. All we get to do is take care of stuff for a little while, and then it's gone. And that always, it left a deep impression on me, what he said, that we're just caretakers. We're just passing through here. We're not owners. We're not residents. One time I went to the Cayman Islands, and it was beautiful. We went scuba diving, and we rode mopeds and drank margaritas and ate lobster and had a wonderful time. But that was not home, And pretty soon, it was time to get on the plane and come back home. And I look upon life a lot like that. And we're just here for a little while on this maybe a vacation, maybe a basic training exercise. And I look upon death like this sort of basic training exercise, and how are we going to function under this sort of heat and pressure that we're here on Earth, these challenges, this obstacle course that we have to go through, and then we get to go, and we don't quite know when our ticket's going to be called. And so it's so very important to do whatever you can to squeeze all the juice out of life and not take it for granted. And I just do with that what you will. A part of the reason that I do this live podcast or live stream video cast, whatever you call it, I had these interns set me up on this deal. I don't know what it is. I just talk into it. I press a button and talk into it every morning. And but part of the reason I do it is because I want to make sure that I do everything that I'm supposed to do in life. And is this comfortable for me to pour my heart and soul out naked in front of, potentially the whole planet when I'm talking to this thing? No, it has not been comfortable for me to share some of my innermost secrets and thoughts. But there's a part of me that says, I've gotten to do all these different things, and I've had all these different experiences, and I have a certain perspective, and I'm supposed to share it. And instinctively, I know I'm supposed to do that. And so even though it's not comfortable for me, especially in the beginning, then, I have to push through that and do it. And my hope is to take the vision of life that's in my mind and turn it into reality. And and so we have to try. We have to try. And there's a certain law about getting something for nothing. There's a universal law that's basically, if there's something you want, all right, if there's a vision you have for your life and you want it, you actually have to step out and make effort for it. No one's going to give it to you. You cannot sit around and just wish that these things are going to happen, or wish that somebody else would give it to you. Wish that somebody would do something so something would happen for you. It's about taking steps. When you get a vision, taking responsibility and taking charge of your own vision, your own imagination that you have, and how you imagine life should be, and then every day starting to work toward that. I'm no motivational teacher. I'm trying to teach myself how to do this, and how to change the stars, as I was talking about yesterday, to take on this feeling that you are in fact on the grand stage and you get to play a role. I'm reminded of that Robin Williams movie, The Dead Poets Society, and where he takes all the kids over to the trophy case, there at the gymnasium, and he points to all the people. He shows them the old photographs of the football players, and basically tells them that they're pushing up weeds now. They're in the worm dirt, all right, and he's saying, gather the rosebuds while ye may. Gather the rosebuds while you may, you have a chance to do a little something, to do a little good, to have a little fun, to achieve something that you dream about. But you've only got a certain amount of time, because you're going to be dirt. And I'm going to say it over and over again because I love this line from Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash movie, where Johnny Cash, he wants to be a rock star. And so he goes down to Sam Phillips' office, and they start singing this clunky old gospel tune, and singing someone else's music is what they're doing. They go in hopes of getting a record deal, and their little trio plays this boring little tune that is similar to everybody else's music. And Sam Phillips, it's the greatest line in the whole movie. And Johnny Cash, he's saying, hey, y'all got anything else? And Johnny Cash says, well, wait, you didn't let us bring it home. And he goes, bring it home? Okay, let's bring it home. He says, if you was hit by a truck and you was laying out there in that gutter dying, and you had a chance to sing one song that people would want to hear before you're dirt, one song that would let God know how you felt about your time here on earth, one song that would sum you up, you telling me that's a song you're going to sing about your peace within and how it's real and how you're going to shout it? Or would you sing something different, something real, something you felt? Because I'm telling you right now, that's the kind of song that people really want to hear. That's the kind of song that truly saves people. It's not about believing in God, Mr. Cash. It's about believing in yourself. And by God, that just, it grabs me because I get, as much as anybody, I've been afraid of myself, afraid of my art, afraid of, letting loose with whoever I am. And there's these rules, and gosh, what will people think? And what will the neighbors say? And oh my gosh, it could be on TV. In getting over stage fright, you just have to get on the stage. I'm reminded of Willard Scott, the famous weatherman. Willard Scott was beloved by millions of people, and Willard Scott would tell you when he was a seasoned professional, he would get stage fright every time he had to go on camera. And in the early days, he would get physically ill when he had to go out and perform. And even, later in life, he had to do this little mental rigmarole to help himself not be afraid. And we spend so much of our life in fear. And if there's something you want, you have to go out and get it. And no one's gonna give it to you. You just got to figure it out. If you want, what does Henry David Thoreau say? Walk confidently in the direction of your dreams, and you will live a life unheard of in normal waking hours, something like that. Walk towards your dreams, and amazing things will happen. And I've noticed that several times, especially that trip to Southeast Asia that I've mentioned. I was afraid to do that, but I bought a ticket when I was 24 years old because I had a vision to go over there and look for a job. And it wasn't until I bought the ticket that magical things started to happen. And a wonderful woman told me about her father in Singapore, gave me a mansion to live in. And when I was in trouble and out of money in Hagi, some little man, showed up at a critical moment and told me where to go to get shelter and refuge. And when I got home to Singapore, and I was about to go home broke with no job, the housekeeper insisted that I go see this man at Western Geophysical, who was just about to leave for India when I arrived, and he gave me a job that changed the whole game. And so I'm a believer in following one's intuition, one's dreams, and this whole this balancing of the world, the saving of humanity by raising the vibration, raising at first your own vibration, raising it as high as it will go. Sort of balancing the left and right brain. Through prayer, through meditation, through your spiritual practice, your yoga, whatever you can to bring about this balance and this harmony. I don't know all about it. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a yoga or meditation teacher. I'm not a Buddhist. I'm not anything except a guy who's sort of been around the block. All right, and I've gotten inklings of a higher way to live because I followed my dreams and my intuitions. And is it particularly dignified or newsworthy? No, it's not. But it is my little way, and so I do whatever I can to contribute a little word in hopes that it might help someone to be inspired, to do something that they dream about, and not tell themselves what the world always tells them, which is that this is not possible and you can't do that. And there is all possibility. And you go. I tell my girls when they go out the door to go to school, do good and be a leader. And I heard Colt McCoy say that. He was a famous quarterback from the University of Texas. His dad always used to tell him, do good and be a leader. And to the best of my ability, that's what I'm trying to do, to do good and be a leader. I instinctively believe that now that I've gained all this experience running around the planet and getting my own perspective, that it's my obligation to teach and to say what's happened and to try to take whatever I've gained and try to turn it into something better in this world. And I truly believe that everything is vibrational. And when you start to think these vibrational thoughts, you turn the world into a better place, and you use the time wisely, because hey, tick tock, you ain't got all the time in the world. Hate to break it to you, Angel, but this party's going to be over, in just a few minutes, and you don't know how many minutes. And so use today. Stay in the present. Be right now. And I love when my daddy died. I said a few words at his funeral, and I had learned a poem which was out here outside of Kerrville at Charlie Schreiner's funeral. He was the head of the YO Ranch out here in Kerrville, and is actually out in Mountain Home. And the YO Ranch is the famous cattle ranch that Captain Schreiner started years ago and helped found the city of Kerrville. But there was a poem that was read at his funeral, and I always liked it. And so I recited it at my dad's funeral, and it goes like this. It goes, when I get to the end of the road and the sun has set for me, I want no rights in a gloom-filled room. Why cry for a soul set free? Miss me a little, but not too long, and not with your head bowed low. Remember the good times that we once had. Miss me, but let me go. For this journey that we all must take, and each must take alone, it's all part of the good Lord's plan, a step on the road to home. So when you're weary and feeling sad, go to the friends that we know, and spend your days doing good deeds. Miss me, but let me go. I always like that. And how to spend your days in service of other people is a good way in whatever we're doing, to try to serve and to get to offer value for the value that we get. And if you're under the illusion that the world should feed you and give you whatever you want without you having to put forth effort, you're in violation of a universal law, all right? And that law says basically that you've got to give something in order to get something. And most often, if you're focused on giving, whether it's in your menial job or whether it's in volunteer service or whether it's in some high executive position, if your heart and your mentality are about service, generally you get anything you want. All right, if you're doing the work and making the effort to serve with everything you can, it brings about your adulthood and your maturity. My old Sunday school teacher Zig Ziglar used to say, "You can get anything and you want. You can get whatever you want in life as long as you help enough other people get what they want." All right. And I always took that to heart. I can say that I knew Zig Ziglar just a little bit. He was my Sunday school teacher, and I got to have lunch with him a few times. And he's a very wise man and lots of fun. And he was all about service, and he built a wonderful career serving other people. And it's important that you find something for which you're passionate. And that's what I'm actually attempting to do now. I have a vision about being a broadcaster, and I have this, a wild notion, that somehow I could do this too. And and so I'm doing whatever I can to try to cottywomble my way into that. Cottywomble means to walk with purpose towards an as yet unknown destination. To what Jordan Peterson calls circumambulation, walking around looking, it's there somewhere, but you feel it more than you know it, and you just, you go searching. Your radar is telling you there's something there. My encouragement to you is to try to do these things. Try to understand that you, in fact, can live a life of your dreams. And when you think about these things, this is my litmus test for if it's worthy of my time and my effort and my life. Every day that you spend, you're giving up a day of your life. What is that poem? This is the beginning of a new day. God has given me this day to use as I will. I can waste it or use it for good. But what I do today is important because I'm exchanging a day of my life for it. When tomorrow comes, this day will be gone forever, leaving in its place something that I've traded for it. Lord, with you as my guide, let this day be for gain and not loss, for good and not evil, for success and not failure, in order that I may not regret the price that I have paid for it. Each day is a gift, and sometimes it's hard for us to remember that when we get caught up in the business of trying to survive and care for people and stuff like that. But it is such a gift to live here, and in whatever ways that and handicaps. I mean, everybody has their level of pain. Everybody has their burden. I don't care who you are. I've seen a lot of wealthy people that don't seem that happy. They say, what's that saying? Money does not buy you happiness, but you get to spend your misery in some of the nicest places. And that's true, but you're still in misery. If you haven't set upon the right vibration, and it's all about vibration, isn't it? When you find something that you love to do, and that you get to do that every day, you are as rich as anybody who has ever lived. And that's my belief. The people who wake up in the morning and they say, my God, I can't believe I get to go do this again. I can't believe they pay me to do this. I love this. And the people who have found that vibrational match, and get to engage in activities that make their hearts sing, these are the richest people. I think I said it yesterday. Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and then go and do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive, all right? So if you are in a situation where you're not entirely pleased and you are routinely imagining and fantasizing and envisioning about a different kind of life, I encourage you. You are the creator, all right? You cannot walk down the street without first you imagine yourself doing it, okay? This is how it works, and you do it so automatically that you don't even realize. But you have to manufacture the vision before you can go and do it. And so therefore, any vision that you are manufacturing in this magical mind of yours, any vision is possible with the right amount of effort. And there's a magical thing that happens when you start to follow a vision. And, you've only got so much time left. I talk about death simply to motivate you into life, all right? Death is not something to be, necessarily sad about. Although we get sad when we lose someone that, we're not going to be able to talk to anymore. It makes us feel a little bit more lonely sometimes. But death is simply like the the end of class. That bell's going to ring at some point. You're not sure how much. And so I believe in every human being there's a sense of mission of some kind. There's this deep in the recesses of our little mind. There's a little flame back there and a little inkling of some mission we're supposed to carry out while we're here. And ever since I was a little boy, I had this vision that I was on some great mission, and that I had something to carry out here. And I believe that is in everyone, whether they fully realize it or not. There is some reason that God made you. God made all this stuff, okay? God, creator, universe, divine power, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's an organized thing, all right? And that spirit runs within us. And we are a part of that. If you look at the universe and the stars, and you look at the sunset, and you look at the amazing wildlife and the organization of the tides and the seasons and the winds and all that, and the divine mind that was behind all that. Well, that divine mind, it decided to make you too, all right? And you have an important role here. And so to find that and to begin to engage in that and to take little steps toward that and carry that out before you lay down and die. What is this is General Tecumseh of I guess Civil War fame. He says, "When your time comes to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home." And I like that. Live a life, my friends. Live a life that when they tell you, oops, time's about up, baby, you're going to die. Wake up, you're going to die. When they give you that news that you're a short timer, or when you get hit with that bullet and your blood's running out, and you're thinking over, the last few minutes of your life, the thoughts you want to have, my friend, are the ones that say, you know what, I did everything I could. I followed my instinct. I did that. I sang the songs. The songs did not die within me. All right, I was able to live with my fellow human beings, and I was able to accomplish things that I really wanted, that were meaningful to me. Do not die. What does he say? Let me read that again. When your time when your time comes to die, be not like those whose hearts are filled with fear of death, so that when their time comes, they weep and pray for a little more time to live their lives over again in a different way. Sing your death song and die like a hero going home. Do not and say, I regret that I didn't try. I didn't try to do those things that instinctively I know. And the more you get educated, this is rough, man. This is rough. When the more that you become aware that you actually are a sliver of the divine, you are a wave in the great ocean. You have a divine role to play on the grand stage, and you instinctively know of these things that you are supposed to do and ways that you're supposed to be, and that you are to strip off all those things that do not serve the central core of that mission. And that you are not eating the things that you're supposed to eat, and doing the exercises you're supposed to do, and engaging in the reading and the learning that you're supposed to be doing, and to making effort to try to transform and transmute yourself into a masterpiece that you could be. If you become more and more aware of these things, and you don't do them, every day your self-esteem goes down. It lowers your vibration if you are not living into that which you could be. In your heart, all right, and but you're not doing it, and that selfish, part of you says, no, I don't want to go through all that effort, and the excuses start to come, don't they? It's like, oh, it'll never turn into anything, oh, why should I go through the effort? Oh, it's going to be painful. Oh, what will people say, if I sing that song or paint that picture, what will they say? All the excuses is just, and I'll have to give up, eating, 17 times a day. You know what I mean? I'll have to stop going down to Kelly's bar and drinking with the boys, but if you're not in the process, I like what Matthew McConaughey said one time. Matthew McConaughey, the actor, he said, if you don't know who you are, start to eliminate all those things that you are not, all right? Start to identify things that really do not serve your highest and best. All right, begin to peel away those things that you are not, and eventually you will come to who you are. All right, so start to. It's a process of elimination to find who you are. And it is not easy sometimes. And you say, well, these things give me comfort. Being lazy and watching TV gives me comfort, and I can zone out, and it takes my pain away. Well, the drug addict says that too. The drug addict says, yeah, I know I should give up drugs, but I'm just going to have it just today, one more time, just because it'll take my pain away, and maybe tomorrow. All right, and it is like that on so many levels. It's not just narcotics, it's not just alcohol, but it's food, it's television, it's watching, constantly looking at some screen, and not creating. All right, the reason I'm sitting here talking to you is because it's an exercise. Once I make a commitment to this. And once just a few people started looking at it and giving me feedback, I've made a commitment, a public commitment, that I have got to create something. I cannot just sit and be a consumer all the time. It's the biggest drug on our planet, and it's getting bigger. All right, being a consumer of electronic stimulation all the time prevents you from being the creative creature that that you can be, and creating a life which you have envisioned. All right, and so I submit to you, that book I've mentioned, The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way talks about the morning pages. All right, handwriting, not with a computer. All right, taking out a pen and a pad and sitting and writing 3 pages of anything. And not for anyone to examine, not even really for you to examine so much unless you want to. Just to write out 3 random pages, whatever thoughts come to your mind, all right? And this is a wonderful exercise, all right? Why? Because it takes you out of that left brain logical. It's serving no purpose, all right? There's no goal other than to get words down on the page. And so what it's allowing is for that right brain intuitive to come forward and to free flow. And this is what I do here on this. It's an exercise in free flowing, so that my mind will get more trained to just come from the heart rather than a contrived message from the left brain. Now, I have found that it's good to try to be balanced, because I got to be a little bit more prepared for some of these talks, but in the end, I have a few subjects that I aim at, and then I free flow into a bunch of different things, whatever comes to my mind. And those morning pages that Julia Cameron talks about in her wonderful book called The Artist's Way, doing that morning pages exercise is really good for the right brain intuitive, and allows you to free flow and to really turn over with yourself what it is you want, what vision you have, and once you're really tracking on a vision, you have the ability to elaborate and make it more bigger and beautiful than you could ever imagine. And then the magic happens when you start, stepping into your own vision. And so I'll leave you with that. Get a vision, get a rhythm, baby, get a rhythm. And I love you with all my heart and soul, and I love you enough to pour it out to you any way it comes to me, genuinely and authentically, right here in Kerrville, Texas. Stevie the Guide on the banks of the Guadalupe River at 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. I hope you have a great day, and bundle up and stay warm, and keep your vibration high. And I'll talk with you tomorrow. I love you. I'll talk to you